I'm a player that make a mistake like anybody else.
It is an absolute mess.
Have you ever seen a more delusional athlete?
I miss shots like anybody else.
Winding down, lines it up.
Wow. Turn the ball over like anybody else.
He's led the league in turnovers 4 times.
Another giveaway.
But I also do a lot of things that a lot of people can't do.
Joey put it down! Perfect ending to a historic day!
Amidst a rough couple of years, his current play for many has overshadowed a career of excellence. He entered the league bleeding confidence as the propellant for a promising future with Kevin Durant. Yet 15 years later, his mind-numbing dunks and remains of a jump shot are nowhere to be seen, playing too fast for his own body to keep up, having unsuccessfully adjusted as years have gone by. Now he unfortunately sits as a representative for bricked jumpers and league-wide hatred. But amongst it all, what will never waver is his heart and commitment to the game of basketball, dying by the game of basketball and giving his all for any franchise until he means no more in this league. June 26, 2008, the Seattle Supersonics, soon to be Oklahoma City, found their guy of the future to pair with the reigning Rookie of the Year, Kevin Durant. 2 years prior, Westbrook was off radars.
Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew who I was.
9 minutes a game for 3 points as a freshman. Reluctance is expected, just so long as it gives way to ambition and resolve. Resolve Westbrook personified in his sophomore year to get him to this opportunity. Defense, athletic, tough, but a winner. Words to describe the newly drafted point guard, whose impact was hard felt come the 2008-9 season. Initially, turnovers and his erratic nature got the best of him. Slow is quick in this league. So maturing through the year, Westbrook begun to play at a different pace, making the case to be the point guard of the future. Averages of 15, 5 and 5 gave light to a promising future, but a league-high turnover count still raised doubts about his position at the 1. The two stars of OKC were on a linear progression of improvement, both projected to further break out in the 2009-10 season. But a season of promise turned real quickly. Durant had fulfilled his generational talent in only year 3, as Westbrook steadily came along as a sidekick, who rose to 5th in league assists, only improving his assist-to-turnover ratio. If they didn't know now, the kid was special.
In his first year as a rookie, you saw the promise, but he also led the NBA in turnovers. A big part of his turnaround this year was his decision-making, cut back on his turnovers. He's strong, he's quick. They're letting him play through his mistakes, and it certainly has paid off.
Orchestrating a young, exciting Oklahoma team that found themselves at 50 wins. But in the tough West, they were the 8th seed. A team that wasn't supposed to be here this quickly had little expectations against the colossal defending champion LA Lakers. So expectedly, the experienced Lakers squad would roll onto a 2-0 series lead. Westbrook and Durant carrying the load for an otherwise poor OKC team.
Because the Lakers are ignoring anybody not named Westbrook or Durant.
But it was Westbrook, not Durant, that catapulted an OKC revival in Game 3. His athletic presence getting to the rim was well recognized, but the questions lied about his jump shot. But in this series, his mid-range shot looked more comfortable than ever on the biggest stage. OKC as a whole now looks comfortable, evening up the series at home. But going back to LA was too tall of a task, falling in 6 games. OKC up 1 with 2 minutes left. Well, Westbrook bricked 4 of the last 5 OKC shots, including a go-ahead 12-footer in the dying moments. But fans and critics could see beyond the flawed Game 6 for a 21-year-old in his first playoff series, one in which Westbrook had become a star. All of a sudden, this OKC team were on the championship radar, projected for a top seed in the West. Alongside the MVP favourite, Westbrook steadily improved his own game as an all-star mid-year, an all-NBA second-team member by the end of the year, up to 22 points and 8 assists at the season's conclusion. Come the first round, Westbrook struggled with his shot, 23 points but on 39% shooting and 4 turnovers. It was serviceable against the 5th-seeded Denver team that they beat in 5, but against the league's best, he knew he had to play better. So the talk continued through the second round. Westbrook, only in year 3, had become the face of league-wide criticism. Projected to be a pass-first option next to the scoring champ, well, he was taking more shots than Durant, missing a lot of them, overzealous with turnovers and bad shots. So after splitting the first 2 games, Westbrook went 1 of 7 with 5 turnovers in the 4th of Game 3, but gets a pass as the whole team misfired. But in typical Westbrook fashion, he followed it up with 40 points on 33 shots in Game 4, but still met with criticism, combining his incredible plays with inexcusable possessions. The Westbrook experience thus far, it felt like no matter how he willed his way to a win, ugly or not, critics seethed at his performance. All things considered, he finished off the Grizzlies in Game 7. Westbrook, criticised for tunnel vision, starred for his most complete game of his career. A Game 7 triple-double in your third year. The Thunder's sometimes unstoppable, other times unwatchable point guard had led them to the second round as a true point guard would.
Talk about dynamic duos. Kevin Durant has been spectacular in scoring. Russell Westbrook has been spectacular in running his team.
The Western Conference thus lined up a battle of conflicting storylines. An aging Mavs team led by the ringless Dirk with only a handful of chances to fill the gaping hole in his resume against an up-and-coming OKC team, eager for their first shot at it all. But Dirk continued his postseason excellence on the year with 46 points in Game 1. But OKC rallied to a strong position, poised to even the series in Game 4, heading back to OKC. The series in their hands. But when Dallas's Dirk Nowitzki caught fire in the final minutes, OKC's star duo went 0 for 8 in the final 2 minutes of the fourth and in overtime with 3 turnovers. Simply inexcusable from one of the league's best 1-2 punchers. OKC never recovered from the blown lead. Their star duo proved human, unable to do it all down the stretch. The importance of James Harden ever pressing this series. Westbrook himself shouldered much of the blame. 24 points on 36% shooting and 20% from 3, as OKC bowed out once again.
A heartbreaking ending to what has been an exceptional season for Oklahoma City.
But this time, they seemed to be only one step away from possibly winning it all. No team was this young, improving so fast. So thus, expectedly, there were favourites to come out the West in 2011-12. Top to bottom, no team was as stacked. The underrated James Harden off the bench, the powerhouse frontcourt of Perkins and Ibaka, and the potentially all-time duo of Westbrook and Durant were just getting started. The only question was, will they be ready in the postseason? So they cruised to the 2 seed in the lockout year, Westbrook receiving second All-NBA honours for the second year running. The exhilarating point guard amongst the league's best, rewarded with a 5-year contract extension. But in the playoffs, they were bound by a rematch in the first round. OKC established their dominance, sweeping the Mavs. This wasn't the same team as last year, the team clicking across the board.
Westbrook in Game 1 and Game 2, and it was Durant last game. Today they just throw it to Harden and he goes off.
So against the Lakers in Game 1, Westbrook set the tone. 27 points and 9 assists on 67% shooting. The best player on a court full of stars. The Laker team that thought they had the Westbrook answer from evidence 2 years ago ran into a changed man, with the best series of his career, advancing to the conference finals. But as the Westbrook experience goes, he faltered in the West Finals. The talent of a stacked OKC team was enough to see them through despite losing the first 2 games of the series against the strong Spurs squad. For right or wrong, every shot he takes and every pass he makes is dissected. So his 18 points on 37% shooting left a lot to be desired scoring-wise, but his passing, defense and effort never wavered, but scoring form in which he'd need to pick up for any chance of stumping the red-hot Miami Heat. 2 teams eager to kick off potential dynasties, one to silence the doubters as a fabricated super team, the other an organically produced squad aiming to fulfill their own aspiring legacies. Durant and Bron were going to get theirs, so much depended on whether Westbrook was playing well on any given night. The stage was set, a stage that OKC looked ready-made for in Game 1, coming away with a win behind Westbrook's near triple-double. But Game 2 was different. Westbrook's erratic game was exposed on the biggest stage. His role wasn't to lead OKC into battle. He was always going to get his shots, but it was Durant's role to set the tone and importantly get going early. So Westbrook, feeding into narratives of selfish play, went 0 for 6 to start the game as Miami went on an 18-2 run early. So whilst KD couldn't find the ball, Westbrook couldn't help himself on the biggest stage as OKC split the homestand.
That was the worst point guard in a championship finals I've ever seen. He was too wild.
James Harden, who was on, had 2 shots. Kevin Durant couldn't find the ball.
Where in Miami, the Heat looked unbeatable, leaving Russell to be benched in Game 3 in the third, centered around his careless turnovers and constant long jumpers. 1 minute you're like, what are you doing? The next, what a play. So avenging his previous woes, Westbrook soared in Game 4 in the face of critics with 43 points.
Just do your thing, Russell. Don't listen to Magic Johnson.
One of the great finals performances in a number of years.
But fouled Chalmers with 4 seconds left on the clock in a brain-dead failure.
Why are they fouling?
A poor decision from Russell Westbrook.
Leaving no time for an OKC game-tying attempt. By now, down 3-1, Miami had eclipsed all the momentum, still with a game to play at home, as they completed their prophecy. Westbrook had taken 3 more shots a game than Durant in the finals, and you don't need me here to tell you that shouldn't be the case. The world thus wondered if a true pass-first point guard would be a better option alongside Durant. Little did they know the pass-first option was right in front of them in James Harden. But critically, him and Ibaka's rookie contracts had only 1 year left on their deals. With the star duo already tied down on big money, luxury tax was a steep hurdle in re-signing both. So after Serge Ibaka re-signed with the squad, it left money on the table for James Harden to seek elsewhere, who, having already sacrificed his playing time coming off the bench, wouldn't sacrifice his money as he was flipped to the Rockets. In spite of the key loss, OKC only got better, climbing to 60 wins and a 1 seed, a season which was largely viewed as championship or bust. No longer were they an up-and-coming squad, but now a proven commodity. So it set up a first-round matchup against his old foe, James Harden. Many still doubted Westbrook's place on a championship roster. This season more than ever was his time to shine. But in the second quarter of Game 2, the diving Pat Beverly quite possibly changed history.
When he goes for the steal, he winds up getting the right leg right there of Russell Westbrook. That's what had Russell Westbrook so upset going into that timeout.
Westbrook would play the game out, having deemed to be okay, but he was found to have torn his meniscus in the following days, ending his ridiculous consecutive game stretch dating back to high school. OKC, seemingly poised for another deep run, were cut from below the knees. KD could strangle them to the second round, but only so far he could carry the roster. So coming into the 2013-14 season, Westbrook would require a second knee surgery, but it would only keep him out for 2 games of the regular season. But it was after Christmas that Westbrook was sidelined for a further 2 months. KD would put the team on his back in his absence, leaving some to arrogantly question Westbrook's place on the team.
And no matter what Russell Westbrook is made of, no matter how great he is, he's not KD. And in the end, it's up to KD to send that message.
Yet he returned in late February, creeping back into form before OKC's playoff commencement. Number 35 happily claiming a 2 seed and MVP amidst Westbrook's absence. But OKC didn't come out firing as they'd done in years prior. The grit and grind Grizzlies pushed OKC to its limits, where after a Game 1 OKC win, the next 4 games went to overtime, the Grizzlies taking 3 of them. Overtimes in which Westbrook shot a combined 0 for 14 with 1 singular point.
Mr. Shoot too much, Mr. Need to give the ball up, Mr. Help your teammates.
In spite of it, a crucial Game 6 awaited. Win or go home in the tough Memphis arena. But a pressured OKC team came out swinging, blowing the Grizzlies out to force a Game 7. Fortunately, Zach Randolph had been suspended following a punch to Steven Adams, and it was a Game 7 built for the likes of Russell Westbrook to thrive, going for a ridiculous 27-point triple-double, leading OKC to victory.
I have no idea why he takes the flack that he takes. This man can play. He's one of the most talented people in the league.
Coach said that you love Game 7s. Why is that?
I don't want to go home.
Surging form, they'd carry through to the second round, outlasting the Clippers in 6 games behind a strong Westbrook and Durant series. Westbrook now undoubtedly playing the best ball of his career. But the San Antonio Spurs was certainly a larger threat in the conference finals, a task made increasingly difficult with the injury of Serge Ibaka. Difficulty made apparent by 2 blowout losses in San Antonio to open the series. The 2 stars beginning to attract critics in the face of what needed to be a winning series. But out of nowhere, Ibaka made a surprise return, giving life to a depleted OKC roster, putting their mark on the series, including most notably a 40-point and 10-assist Game 4 from Westbrook to even up the series, the best game of his career for some. So just like that, it felt like 2012 again, the young core now in its prime, flourishing at the right time. But a lights-out Spurs squad from 3 put a halt to the OKC momentum in Game 5. So they came into Game 6 in the heat of a pressure cooker bearing down on them, down by 6 with 2 minutes left. Westbrook catapulted OKC for 2 quick buckets, and with the season on the line with 13 seconds left, he got to the line and calmly knocked down both of his free throws to send it to overtime. But keeping his head, the 39-year-old Tim Duncan showed his class in overtime, single-handedly fueling the Spurs, whilst Westbrook and Durant lost their heads going 1 for 10 in the period. Westbrook, the aggressive rim-running guard, settled for long jumpers, and when getting to the rim got blocked by Leonard in one of the great defensive plays of the playoffs.
3-on-2 to the Thunder. Westbrook. Oh, he's stripped by Leonard. What a play!
Despite the choke, Westbrook had asserted himself in these playoffs. His best stretch of basketball up to this date, that no matter what the outcome, Westbrook was the top 5 player in the world. Kevin Love said that, not me. Either way, the two stars, both 25, well, they had what felt like another decade at the top to get over the hump. Yet all good things don't come without hardship. Durant suffered a foot fracture to begin the 2014-15 season. Coupled with Westbrook's broken right hand, well, the Thunder begun the year 3-12. Eventually, the All-Stars would get back on the floor, but Durant was sidelined in February for his foot, having been in and out of games for his injuries. He was eventually ruled out for the year come March. So like Durant had done the year before, Westbrook carried this OKC squad with 31 points on a near triple-double for the remaining games without Durant. But in the bloodbath of a Western Conference, they missed the playoffs with 45 wins. A year that brutally cost Scott Brooks his job, for no apparent reason.
Scott Brooks did not deserve to get fired, plain and simple.
He lost his job because his MVP didn't play. But either way, it was a level of play from Westbrook that, combined with Durant's return, would muster an OKC squad that wasn't to be reckoned with in the West. But irrespective of their play, the main storyline of the 2015-16 season centered around Durant's free agency, the team entering its most pivotal year in arguably franchise history to convince the superstar of his state. Otherwise, a darker timeline ends with Durant elsewhere. But Durant, whilst on the team, was gonna hoop, him and Russ elevating the Thunder back to success as the 3 seed, behind 2 historic teams in the West. Russ averaged 10 assists on the year. His ability to get others into the game could no longer be questioned.
Russell Westbrook over the last 2 years has, I think, matured as a basketball player, and he does a better job of getting everyone else involved.
So a remade Russ came into the playoffs blazing hot. It was him, not KD, who led OKC to a first-round win against Dallas, 26-11 on 45% shooting for number 0. And with Steph out for 2 weeks, there was a sense of optimism that this was their year, a sense of camaraderie felt around the team.
Kevin was the only superstar on this team, and how do you react to that?
Hold up. He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
So advancing to the second round, they had their chance at revenge on the 67-win Spurs. As the underdogs, they split the first 4 games, Westbrook admitting his own fault of taking too many shots amidst the homestand.
Just too many shots. I got to read and find ways to get guys shots, and I take the blame.
But finding themselves down 6 in the 4th of Game 5, Westbrook, subject to hero ball claims, trusted himself, knowing he had to call his own shot, so he responded with back-to-back buckets and an exhilarating and 1 to conclude the game, and ultimately the series, as they went on to upset the Spurs, advancing to their 4th conference finals together, playing as good a basketball as ever, punching in a day with the 73-win Warriors, as doubters unsurprisingly came crawling back to OKC.
But their talent supersedes everything because those 2 guys are so special and they get away with things. I don't think you can get away with it in this building against these guys.
Yet in a league awakening statement, OKC trumped the best regular season team of all time in their building in Game 1. It was Durant in the first half and Westbrook with 24 second half points in the second that did it. There was belief. They knew they always had a chance, but now the entire world knew it as well. And as the terrible 3-point shooter Westbrook buried a corner 3 in the face of the 3-point innovators in Game 4.
Westbrook for 3.
There was a sense of triumph in the air, that this team was special. Westbrook leading the way with a 36-point triple-double to take the 3-1 lead, outplaying the unanimous MVP in a bidding case for the league's best point guard.
Why don't we never give the other team credit? Russell Westbrook is just kicking their ass, plain and simple. All the pressure's on Golden State now.
But pressure a Warriors squad proved to be built for in Game 5.
We're not going home.
Despite 30 pieces from KD and Russ. Now, just like that, the pressure shifted onto OKC going back home, expected to close it out, aiming to filter out the ghosts of a Game 7 in Oakland for a heaven-sent return to the NBA Finals.
The pressure of winning Game 6 really is more on Oklahoma City.
A heaven-sent return to the finals that was in sight. In Game 6, they were up 7 with 5 minutes left at home. But what followed was a meltdown from hell. Whilst the Splash Bros rained down trays, the OKC duo went brick for brick, turnover for turnover. One possession, it was Durant. The next time down the floor, it was Westbrook.
Oh, Curry on the intercept! And just like that, Golden State has momentum on their side.
Doing their best to throw away the game with any chance to extend or take the lead. Both had strong stat lines, but when needed most, crumbled in the face of adversity. And as Steph arrogantly put up 7 fingers, there was a feeling that this one had slipped away for OKC.
When you're this close to going to the NBA Finals and they take it from you.
Psychologically, this team was beat going back to Oakland. A mental deficit the aggressive Westbrook couldn't overcome in Game 7, as the Warriors' usual third quarter flurry finally stumped OKC in their tracks, having been held to 12 third quarter points. For years, it's been about what the front office and staff could do to get Durant and Westbrook back to the finals. But now the question was reversed onto them. What could they do? They weren't young, instead the oldest guys on the court. This was on them, and put simply, they didn't produce. The duo conjuring one game of 40% shooting in their final 3 losses between them. Just one.
Then why did they blow a 3-1 lead in this series, Charles?
Because they resorted to what they've done to blow the most regular season leads during the regular season. They play hero ball.
But what awaited Westbrook and the Thunder was an even darker reality in the offseason. The NBA's new television deal gave most teams a chance for a run at Durant, but it had always been thought of as a surprise for Durant to leave his superstar teammate Westbrook in the community that adores him to ring chase elsewhere. But Durant, all ears, explored his options. And so the winner of the sweepstakes, a 7-footer aiming to sit atop the throne, figured OKC wasn't best suitor. Instead, the 73-9 Warriors.
Well, I'm viewing it as the weakest move I've ever seen from a superstar, plain and simple.
Leaving Westbrook in the dark by telling him he wouldn't leave and only having the courtesy to break the news via text message. But as one bolted, the other stayed. Westbrook agreeing to a 3-year extension.
There's no need to wait if you know where you want to be. There's no need to waste time.
We saw what he could produce as the focal point of the offense in 2015 when Durant was out. This time, we just got a full season of it. Westbrook made it his mission to devote everything to a loyal OKC fanbase. So it was a season filled with dramatic conclusions and dazzling plays, as the heliocentric for the team, doing everything across the floor. Some loved the stat-stuffing Russ, others blatantly disregarding his outrageous output. So the league's MVP race was very much in the balance between him and his old foe James Harden. But Westbrook's last few weeks of the season gave way to statistical anomalies and game-winning shot.
He's trapped, he fires, he scores!
After game-winning shot.
Russell pulls up at the nail and scores!
But none better than near the season's conclusion. 3 games left, 1 triple-double away from the all-time record in a season. Yet down 10 with 2 minutes left, a win looked unlikely for what was set up to be a historic night. Yet Westbrook, relentlessly attacking the rim, kept the Thunder afloat, digging away at the lead and furthering his lead in the NBA clutch point tally, until it was down to 2.9 seconds. Down by 2, a season of clutch time heroics, Westbrook needed one more.
Thunder's out of timeouts. Adams gives it back to Russ. Deep shot! What a perfect ending to a historic day!
What else can he do?
What else can he do? Not much more. He dragged his team to the postseason as the 6th seed on a 30-point triple-double and a league MVP, set to battle his fellow MVP candidate in James Harden in the first round. Yet in a budding summary of the roster and Westbrook's game, after getting blown out in Game 1, in Game 2, Westbrook recorded an insane 51-point triple-double, but shot a ghastly 17 of 43 to achieve that, including a 4 of 18 showing in the pivotal fourth quarter. His 14 missed shots in the fourth were the most misses in any quarter over the last 20 postseasons. But it was volume shooting excused to an extent, as the Thunder roster wasn't near contention whatsoever, as they fell in 5 games. It was a team desperate for a co-star alongside Westbrook since the departure of Durant. Something about watching the two that bled optimism into an Oklahoma franchise destined to win a championship not as an if, but a when, now make their beef public. Durant had his championship roster, now Russ needed his own. So OKC made a quartet of moves in the offseason. First signing Paul George for Oladipo and Sabonis, both unproven players. Following it up by signing all-star Carmelo Anthony, but who had 1 year left on his deal, but was projected to settle in nicely to a spot-up role alongside the two main stars, tying it all together with a Supermax extension for their main man Westbrook, doing so on Kevin Durant's birthdays of all days. With high expectations, the Thunder Corps slowly eased their way to expectations, looking like a 60-win team amidst the end of the year. However, once key defensive cog and role player Andre Roberson went down for the season and essentially his career, the team never quite got back into their flow. PG now more defensively minded, and Melo falling back into uncomfortable territory as a former superstar clinging onto his past scoring game as the team's third option. Nevertheless, they had 48 wins and a 4 seed behind another triple-double season for Westbrook, but it was an up-and-coming Jazz squad waiting in the first round, a team with little playoff experience against one that was built for the playoffs with their experience. However, in a grudge series, the Jazz prevailed through the first 4 games, taking a 3-1 lead. They were going to be hard to beat, but simply impossible to beat when Westbrook was being outplayed by Ricky Rubio. So facing another elimination game, Russ had one of the best games of his career. It was down 25 points in the third that the MVP showed up biggest, rallying alongside George for a damning comeback.
Westbrook for 3, scores! All the way back from 25 points down!
Westbrook himself doubling his shot count from the previous game for 45 points to send it back to Utah. But had it been too late in this series, as Russ sought to repeat his efforts in Game 6 with an egregious 43 points falling to the Utah Jazz. A glaring possession down by 3, summing the series up for the Thunder. A daring Westbrook layup misfiring into a George open 3, following into a terrible Westbrook pull-up jumper. A weak layup from playoff P, who, pause, had been terrible this series. Anyway, it's kicked out to Westbrook for another open brick until it finally ends in an airball 3 from PG.
Oh boy, he was looking to throw the hit.
6 shots, 6 misfired attempts from 2 Hall of Famers in their prime. Expectedly, despite nothing from his co-stars, Westbrook took the brunt of the blame due to his 43 shots in an elimination game. So in the offseason, immediately Melo sounded off from the organisation, but it was quickly overshadowed by unexpected news of Paul George's re-signing after years of rumours to LA.
This is basically him giving a giant hug to Oklahoma City.
So quickly, we shifted to a season of optimism again. PG back, Melo gone, positive news for the Thunder. They were still a tier down from the bona fide studs of the West, but had a season at hand to prove themselves. A season in which the team had finally clicked. Paul George was playing MVP basketball, Westbrook second fiddle to George's elite play on both ends of the floor. Westbrook, who was playing well when he wasn't shooting those loopy long jumpers and wasn't at the line because his free throw dropped 20% in the span of 2 years. But either way, unfortunately a shoulder injury for PG after the All-Star break pegged back the championship-looking team down a few steps coming into the playoffs. It was a stretch of play for a team with its cap tied amongst its top players, showcased their lack of depth across the board. So they ended as the 6th seed, matched up against Damian Lillard and the Blazers. The two budding point guards had a history of beef that spilled into the playoffs, and again it was a grudge match that fell in the opposition's way. Down 3-1 once again, Westbrook unable to string together a set of good games. notably going scoreless in the second half of the decisive Game 4. So we entered the decisive Game 5, as the Thunder looked poised to send it back home with a chance to tie the series up. But up 8 with 3 minutes left, the star duo of George and Westbrook threw away their chances at a dagger. So as Westbrook missed a potential game winner in the final seconds, his point guard foe had his own chance to send them home.
Lillard, long-range three, and it's good! At the buzzer! Damian Lillard! Are you kidding me?
What has happened since Kevin Durant has left OKC? KC has not made it past the first round. He lost to a Houston team without Chris Paul. He lost to a Utah team led by a rookie. And last night he lost to Damian Lillard.
So little do we know, as Westbrook sat on the press conference table in shock at what had just transpired, it would be the last time he'd boast a title as an NBA player for the Thunder. You could question his decision making and shot selection, but what you could never question was his heart and devotion to a city that he owed no right to, and a slew of bravado performances giving life to this Oklahoma franchise over the years.
I know what to expect from Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook brings it each and every possession.
But as Paul George finally requested a trade to LA, Westbrook followed suit in a bid to arrive in Houston. A needed exit for Westbrook, whose emotions overtook him for the majority of the season, repeatedly stating next question in response to the media.
But I asked Steven a question, and it's a legitimate
question. Next question.
It's a legitimate question.
Next question.
Amongst a year of feuds with both players and fans, it's sad Westbrook allowed next question to overshadow a season where everyone should have been telling the story behind why not. So entering the 2019-20 season, on paper, the fit of the two most ball-dominant guards alongside each other in Houston was questionable.
These two guys do not make sense playing together. Over the last 5 years, 1 and 2 in usage. Russ is 1, James Harden is 2.
So whilst Westbrook had a career year inside the arc as second fiddle to Harden, outside the arc at 26%, it allowed teams to disregard him from the perimeter. An offensive construction that never really clicked in Houston, even going to their ultra small ball lineup in a bid to become an ultra switchable defense and spaced offense. But having suffered a quad injury in the back end of the bubble, a Rockets team that needed an edge from Westbrook's play never got it, as he struggled in the playoffs, returning midway through the first round before exiting in the second round to the eventual NBA champs. A failed experiment. Reality kicking in for Westbrook, who didn't tolerate tardiness, that the Rockets culture was terrible, dividing a line between its co-stars as Westbrook requested a trade based on these conditions. But the team he ended up on was in Washington, a hallmark in recent years for playoff failure and a team coming off a 9th seed. For once in what felt like a whole decade, Westbrook was now on a bottom feeder, but it was a blessing in disguise for Russ, away from the spotlight in a small franchise team, trying to stay afloat in the East. So once settled in, Westbrook dominated in a true display of his talents post the All-Star break. He openly struggled to commence the season, playing on a torn quad. Yet once healthy, he willed a Washington team that was 17-32 in March on an 18-7 finish, taking home the Eastern Conference Player of the Month award in May on ridiculous averages, breaking the all-time triple-double record of 181 in the process. However, it was short-lived glory. Westbrook, dealing with injuries again, struggled against a strong Philly team in the first round that they ultimately stood no chance against, where after Game 2, limping off the court, he was showered in popcorn from a fan, and all you could do was feel sorry for the man.
To be honest, man, it's getting out of hand, especially for me. The amount of disrespect, the amount of just fans is doing whatever they want to do. It's out of pocket, man.
Teammates loved him. His play for a large part deserved respect, but he could never garner any respect from the wider public. It was his original energy that fueled a dire Wizards team in the first place, but amidst the poor postseason run, it was largely overshadowed. So despite a solid year, Washington were content to part ways with Russ, willingly trading him to his preferred destination in Los Angeles, a team who won a ring 2 seasons ago and when healthy looks like a surefire championship contender, reflected in their odds as the second best favourite going into the year. But like all Russ years, he started off horribly, but it was play that never improved through the season, A season that begun with blind faith ended in him being booed by his own fans and becoming combative with the media. More apparent than ever, he was struggling with the criticism coming his way.
Every time I think Russell Westbrook embarrasses himself at a press conference, he one-ups me.
Have you ever seen a more delusional athlete in your life than Russell Westbrook?
Under the bright lights of LA, wearing the famous purple and gold, the misses were made often dramatic. Air balls, errant bank shots, inexplicable turnovers.
He just can't shoot, and he tends to turn the ball over. That's a problem.
This was the Russell Westbrook hatred at its peak. You couldn't go one day without a new Westbrook lowlight on social media or an article criticizing his play. A large part of this perception was his contract, sitting at over $44 million. So as a result, fans treated him as a $44 million play, despite how obvious it was that he wasn't at that level no more. Thus, for right or wrong, he had become the scapegoat for Los Angeles. Someone who became an MVP with a do-it-all mindset was expected to do less, despite Jameson Davis saying the Lakers needed Russ to be Russ. So after Frank Vogel got fired, Russ told reporters he didn't know what Vogel's issue was with him, despite Vogel defending him all year, refusing to bench him and giving him chance after chance despite his up and down play.
And just when I thought I heard it all from him, he shows up at the press conference yesterday and essentially throws Frank Vogel under the bus, a now fired Frank Vogel.
So with a player option with an untradeable $40+ million on the books, Westbrook set out for another year in Los Angeles, this time to come off the bench. Bench or not, Russ's scoring and efficiency both dropped, but the Lakers as a whole were deeply flawed. So come the 9th of February 2023, the Lakers stood at a mere 58-80 in the Westbrook era. Through his own poor play, but more broadly injuries from the two stars and poor roster construction, as Westbrook was traded to the Jazz and later picked up by the Clippers, marking the end of a disastrous stretch in Los Angeles, one that may have said farewell to any prosper of the all-star player. There was still a good player in there, just not in LA.
I got traded immediately, to be honest, from that moment. Mentally, I was in a better place.
For Russ at least, it couldn't get much worse for the former MVP, but thankfully he looked wanted at the Clippers thanks to the word of Paul George, and it was reflected in his improved play. And when George and Leonard both went out for the year, it was Russ who kept this team afloat in the postseason before eventually being outmatched by the Suns in 5.
Bringing Russ here, really saved our season as far as making the playoffs and having this run that we had in the playoffs.
He delivered. It was the reason I was willing to stick my neck out and vouch for him.
Finally, at ease on a roster, Russ re-signed with the Clippers. But to his surprise, having traded for James Harden, naturally, the 35-year-old Westbrook favored a role off the bench, volunteering himself for the position. Sadly, as a result, his minutes fell to 21 a game, down 10 minutes to when he was starting early in the year. Slowly but surely, the Westbrook we loved was fading, averaging career lows on all major statistics. So come playoff time, with injuries to their stars once again, Westbrook could do little off the bench in a terrible playoff series, falling to the Mavs in 6, marking the end of 3 failed attempts at a ring in his home state. 3 attempts in the bright lights of Los Angeles that highlighted more than any other city would the decline of Russell Westbrook. So in search for a ring and a greater role, Westbrook was traded to the Jazz before he was bought out by the Nuggets, where I'm sure he'll play a similar role to that of Los Angeles off the bench. This time, hopefully, with the mix of Jokic, Porter and Murray, it will make for a better fit and get Westbrook that elusive ring. But sadly for him, in recent years, this brutal game has taken more from him than it ever gave. He entered this stage with the arrogance of youth, a confidence so potent it was palpable. But what was once his greatest strength became his most profound challenge. Yet when his ability wavered in Los Angeles, his heart never followed. And that, combined with the game-winning shots and electric plays, above all else, will never be forgotten.